Hi, it's Mark Sinkowitz, and welcome to a special series of SeedWorld podcast episodes. We'll be covering this year's virtual annual meeting of the National Association of Plant Breeders, which takes place August 15th to 19th, 2021. Robin Groose is retired associate professor of agroecology and plant breeding at the University of Wyoming. He works with the Department of Plant Sciences on their respective breeding projects with pea and dry edible bean. He's also the incoming chair of the National Association of Plant Breeders Advocacy Committee. I sat down with Robin to talk about what the Advocacy Committee does and why he wanted to be chair. Enjoy our chat. I was hoping we could start by just finding out a little bit about who Robin is, your history in the industry, and your involvement with the NAPB. That'd be great.
Yeah, and so I grew up in Wisconsin, dairy farming family. Went to school at University of Wisconsin in Madison. Got interested in genetics, and but I really wasn't interested in fruit flies. And of course Mendel and gave us laws of heredity with peas, and I am a pea breeder. But alfalfa is what I started out with. And chasing transposable elements in alfalfa about the time that Barbara McClintock won her Nobel Prize, and did something similar in soybean on a postdoctoral. And then I spent 30 years at the University of Wyoming as a plant geneticist, plant breeder. As time went on, more and more, I was involved in undergraduate education, but carrying on with breeding. And we have released some varieties through the University of Wyoming. It's been legumes all my life. There's one called Lander alfalfa that's widely grown across the Intermountain West that a company called Haystack Mountain Seeds sells. And we just registered a variety called Wild Winter, a feed pea that might be grown in rotation with wheat. In fact, that's what it was bred for, to partially or fully replace fallow and integrate crops and livestock on the Great Plains. And I retired 5 years ago. And we're in Tucson, Arizona for family reasons. My son is with Caterpillar here. He's a mechanical engineer. And I'd fallen in love with Tucson years ago, coming to meetings here regarding alfalfa breeding and physiology. And we had 30 good years in Wyoming, but we're ready to move on. And so now we're here. There's 3 generations of us here as of 4 years ago. Have a couple of grandsons here, and I have been following what goes on with NAPB. I was around at the beginning when it was a regional project through USDA, and I was Wyoming representative. It's called the Plant Breeding Coordinating Committee now. I wasn't heavily involved. Wasn't one of the movers and shakers in founding NAPB. But recently I got I've been, the last year's meeting was virtual. The year before I actually attended in Georgia with one of my former graduate students, still mentoring students. But I got this email saying they were looking for people to participate in committees, and I responded to that. And I told the advocacy committee I'd be very happy participating in this, but I'm retired. I don't have clerical staff and all that sort of thing that you at the companies or the universities have. But COVID affected some people's lives in the committee, and at one of our meetings, we were looking at an executive order from President Biden from in January regarding Agriculture and Forestry. And then from Tom Vilsack, the Secretary of Agriculture, there was a request for information regarding how USDA could respond to promoting farmers voluntarily adopting practices that might sequester carbon, etc. And I won't say I spearheaded this, but I was kind of a burr under the saddle or a Kickstarter. I said, people, we have to respond to this. And I think we came up with a pretty good document. Global warming, climate change is real. Talk to farmers. What's known as the summer slump, when you can cut alfalfa pretty much every month here in Arizona, except when it just gets too hot. And even in Wyoming, the latest Wyoming livestock roundup I read, one of my colleagues at UW had an article about when your alfalfa is performing poorly in the heat. But so we came up with something. I put together the first words, and Bill Tracy helped out, and then it went out to the committee in general. And this was with just 2 or 3 days to do this. But when it came back, what everybody else had added looked so nice. And they weren't getting any volunteers to step in for chair. And I was just so impressed, realizing what a good group we have, that I said yes. And now I'm quite, I was a little reluctant to start. Now I'm enthusiastic.
Can you talk a little bit about what the Advocacy Committee does and why it's so important to the NAPB?
Well, the Farm Bill, as it's known here every 5 years, is something that the committee has had as a major goal, making sure that USDA supports plant breeding, both commercial and public breeding. And of course, we train students at land-grant universities. One of the others is we use germplasm, and supporting the National Plant Germplasm System in the US. And what's the third one? That's listed as main goals. Educating students, I guess. Yeah. And then now, and we have plans to have put together some white papers, probably regarding new breeding techniques, and the whole climate change issue. It's more work for plant breeders. Our improving plants to improve lives, I believe, is our slogan, motto, credo. I can do better than slogan. And that's just something I believe in. And hey, I'm a grandpa, and what kind of world are we leaving our kids? So that's part of my motivation. Food security is a part of this. And growing up in Wisconsin, the Groose dairy farm was just outside of Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, where I was born. I have an affinity with producers, farmers, ranchers, rural communities, and the broader infrastructure that supports them, which for sure includes the seed industry.
You sort of touched on them already, but are there a few big things that are on your agenda as you take over as chair that you want to accomplish over the next year or so?
Well, regarding, and I just got the strategic plan that the executive committee put together, and one of the bullets in there was to develop white papers and positions on various issues. And at the top, I would put climate change and how there's a need for both responding to climate change that has already occurred. That was kind of the gist of the UN report that came out 2 or 3 days ago. It's not as bleak as some might think. We can deal with some of these things, and agriculture and plant breeding have a role in that. And to advocate when it comes to the Farm Bill and whoever else will listen. That's a question I have for our group. Just who all are our audience? And another one is new breeding techniques. And the bit of pea breeding I'm doing in the backyard here is strictly organic. I have no reason to use any pesticides in our backyard. On the other hand, I see, many of the conventional techniques judiciously applied is perfectly sustainable. And so I see us moving ahead on all fronts. And gene editing is a big deal now, isn't it? And I don't suppose maybe there are a couple of varieties of this or that are coming out via gene editing, mostly knocking out gene action, which we can do conventionally. I guess it's conventional now with chemical mutants and gamma rays. We can do it. I'm using we in a very broad sense, although I understand that it is possible to have petri dishes and some simple reagents in a kitchen like the one I'm sitting in. And it makes it accessible to some of the smaller companies. One thing I'll mention is that over the years, I've seen participation of women in science grow, and I am half of the smartest people, if not more than half of the smartest people on the face of this planet have 2 X chromosomes, and we need all hands on deck in dealing with not just dealing with problems, but I think making a better world.
For more great podcasts, visit seedworld.com.